Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this research review centered around online fundraising and how we can understand and influence the motivation of our donors, the most difficult factor to influence. Thank you so much again for joining us today. My name is Jeff Giddens. I wanted to address a few housekeeping items before we start off this broadcast. Just so you can see, answers to a few common questions we get. Number one, a video recording will be made available. It takes a few hours to process, and then we'll send it out to you tomorrow. We'll also send links to all of the experiments after this call. And so if you see an experiment on here that you want to share with somebody in your organization, we will send you that link. Finally, we want your questions. If you've not used Meeting Burner before, there's a little button up in the top left pane of your Meeting Burner tab that you should see right now. It says Ask a Question. If you click that, it'll pop up this box. One thing to note, hitting Enter does not submit the question. You actually have to hit this Send button. So we'd love to answer questions after the presentation, and we'll get to as many as we can. All right, without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Tim Kachuriak to talk about understanding donor motivation.
Well, great, and everybody, thank you again for making time out of your busy schedules to join us. We love sharing the research that we're doing. It's part of our way of kind of clarifying what we're learning each day, and it makes no sense if we don't share that with somebody like you. So thanks for joining us. We're going to get started right away, and if you have been on these before, you know that we always like to start by talking about the theory first. And so we're going to start back at the beginning, talking about the online donor funnel. Before we get into motivation, we have to understand this. So this is how most of us who are online fundraisers view the world. There's different ways that we put traffic into our website. And the idea is we're trying to move people consistently from interest to involvement to investment. We're trying to turn those visitors into prospective donors, our prospective donors into new donors, our new donors into people that continue to give financial support year after year. And hopefully some of those people become passionate advocates and evangelists for our cause to bring other people into our funnel. And this is really how I viewed the world, and this is how most of us view the world as it relates to online fundraising or direct response. And that was until we met these guys at MECLABS. And you probably, if you've been on one of these before, you've heard me talk about MECLABS. But MECLABS is the largest optimization institution in the world. They work with some of the largest corporations on the planet. And through the course of their work, they have performed a tremendous amount of research. They have performed over 1,500 major experiments. They've tested 10,000 different conversion pathways. They've recorded and analyzed over 5 million phone calls. And all of that data that they've gathered is to try to help them answer one single solitary question, which is this: why do people say yes? And their thesis is if they can continue to understand the reasons and motivations behind how people make their decisions, they can influence greater sales for their client partners. And with all of this research that they've developed, they've actually codified it into this meta theory, and there's a number of different heuristics. We're actually going to spend some time looking at one of these formulas today. But when we first met these guys, we went and sat down with them. We started to talk to them a little bit about our funnel. We said we have this 3-phase funnel. We're trying to move people from interest to involvement to investment. And they said, oh, we love the funnel. The funnel is a tremendously valuable analogy. In fact, it should be the primary analogy because all of marketing should be to move people to a decision point. It should be moving people to take action. But the problem with your funnel is that it actually distorts reality. People are not falling in the top. What they're in fact doing is they're falling out of the bottom of the funnel because we're not getting 90% conversion rates or 70% conversion rates. We're getting like 2%. I think that's the benchmark across the industry, is a 2% conversion rate for visitors to a website. So in order to get a proper perspective, we have to take the funnel, we have to flip it upside down and realize that people are not traveling down the center. What they're in fact doing is climbing up the sides. And each of these sides in this analogy represents a different conversion pathway. People come to our website with different motivation sets, with different intentions, with different reasons and backgrounds. And I mean, there's so many different reasons why people come to our website, and not all of them are aligned with giving. So each of these conversion pathways look a little bit different depending on the segment of audience you're talking to. So instead of a donor funnel, what it really looks like is a donor mountain. And our goal as online fundraisers is to get people to the top of this mountain. And that's represented by this macro, yes, the ultimate goal. Whatever it is we're trying to get people to convert to, whether it's from a visitor to a volunteer, the volunteer becomes our macro yes. If it's from a visitor to a donor, the donation becomes our macro yes. But in order to get to the top of the mountain, there's a series of micro decisions that must be made along the way. So for example, if I send you an email, you have to do what? First, you have to open the email. Then perhaps you have to read or discern the content, and then maybe you make a decision to click, and if you click, it takes you to a landing page. And on the landing page, there's a series of decisions you make as you navigate the copy and the images and the videos and whatever other content exists on that page, and perhaps that content moves you. Maybe that moves you to say, yes, I want to donate. You click on that little red donate button, and then it takes you to a donation process, and there's a series of decisions you make even as you go through filling out each of those different fields. And so what we need to do is we have to ask the primary question, what is the force that's going to move people through these series of micro decisions that leads them to the macro decision? And of course, the force behind our marketing is messaging. The message is the primary vehicle that we use to deliver content to our visitor that helps them to make those decisions. And so then the next question is, well, great. Well, what's the force behind the message? And as our friends at MECLABS like to describe it, it is the essence of the value proposition. Very simply, does the perceived value of taking an action at each of these different points outweigh the perceived cost? And so really, the whole idea of optimization science is that we're trying to change the perception of something being very cost-heavy and value-light to being very value-heavy and cost-light. And the theory is if we can actually tip the scale in our favor where the visitor perceives the value of taking that action or moving to the next step more valuable to them than the cost that it costs them, and the cost doesn't just have to be monetarily, it could be mental costs. It could be time. It could be the level of efforts or resources required in order to fill out that donation form, for example. So our goal in optimization is very simply to move this fulcrum in our favor. Okay, so let's go ahead and unpack this formula. So this is the conversion heuristic. This is a tool developed by our friends at MECLABS, and we have found it to be incredibly useful. And so we want to share this with you today. Conversion equals 4m plus 3b plus 2i minus f minus 2a, and within this formula are different variables. C represents the probability of conversion. The probability of conversion is determined first and foremost by the motivation of the visitor to your website. What did they come there for in the first place? What is their intentions? What is their mindset as they come to the website? That is the primary thing that causes conversion, and that's why it has a 4 before it, because it's the most important. The next thing in the sequence is the force of the value proposition. Well, if you've attended one of the sessions that we held like this a couple months ago, we talked a lot about value proposition. Well, that's something that we actually have a lot of control over in our marketing. We can control the words, the images, the videos, the message that we put on screen that conveys that value proposition. And then there's other factors involved. Incentives. These are appealing elements that we can introduce at the element where the user decides to take an action, and it's designed to be an appealing element that tips the scales in our favor. Then there's also inhibitors like friction and anxiety that either slow people down or even worse, stop them dead in their tracks and cause them to abandon the page. So I wanted to give you some perspective, but today we are just going to focus on the 4M part of this equation. We're going to focus on motivation. But you can see how each of these different variables map very neatly to this little metaphor where we have value factors of motivation, value proposition, incentive, and then we also have the cost forces of friction and anxiety. Next month, I believe we have scheduled, and we'll tell you a little bit more about this later, but we're going to talk exclusively about friction, but today we're just going to focus on motivation. So let's go ahead and start looking at a few experiments. So this one goes way, way back. This is our very first experiment. And in this particular example, we were focused on ways to increase the motivation of visitors to our website from an email campaign, and we used the value proposition to change that kind of value fulcrum in our favor. So let me give you an example of how this works. So we were working with the George W. Bush Presidential Center at the time. We were renting email lists and sending out solicitation emails for the purpose of acquiring new donors for the organization. And they were building a big library, and there's a lot of fanfare around that, and so it was a pretty interesting offer. Now, we had this email that's on the left-hand side of your screen, which was our control, and this control had been performing very, very well. And sometimes when we find something that's working well, we kind of, we're not really that interested in optimizing it. We're just kind of interested in not breaking it, what's already working. But in this particular example, and this is our very first experiment, we said let's focus on what we believe to be a very safe area of this email. And we focus on the call to action, which is the very last sentence of the email. I don't know if you can see it. I'll blow it up in just a second. But if you look at the very last sentence, it's different between the control and the treatment. We set up our A-B split test. 100,000 email subscribers got version A, 100,000 got version B, because we definitely wanted to have enough data points to be able to validate this experiment. We ran our tests, and the version on the right, the treatment, produced a 141% increase in click-through and a 42% increase in revenue. And this became really exciting. And honestly, this is what kind of like stoked the fire for me, and was a turning point where I decided I wanted to spend the rest of my life optimizing things because this is really fun. I love seeing big green arrows going up. So let me blow up the two sentences, and I will explain the difference and how this one small change led to such a dramatic impact. The original call to action read like this: please accept this invitation to stand with President and Mrs. Bush by making a tax-deductible online contribution now. I mean, it's a typical ask that any of us would probably make in any of our email appeals, right? So how did we optimize this? Well, we focused on trying to increase the force of the value proposition so that we could get more people to click. Our reasoning was, instead of kind of going for the end goal of getting somebody to give a gift, let's just get them to buy in at a smaller level and say, yes, I'm interested in this idea of becoming a charter member of the George W. Bush Presidential Center. So you can see the optimized version. We simply just say, hey, please accept this invitation to become a charter member of the George W. Bush Presidential Center. So what conveys a stronger value proposition to the person opening this email? Is it giving a tax-deductible gift? Yeah. Or is it becoming a charter member of the prestigious George W. Bush Presidential Center? Well, the cool thing is we don't have to guess anymore. We can use the web as a living laboratory and test these hypotheses in real time and get data back that will help us to better understand the motivation of the people that are on our lists. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. So let me introduce this concept, and if you have heard me talk ever before, you probably have seen this graphic before, but this is a very simple model that we use to help us focus our attention on the right elements in our online fundraising that leads to greater revenue. It's traffic, it's conversion rate, and it's average gift. And the amazing thing about this thing we call the Flux capacitor of revenue maximization is that each of these factors has the exact same impact on revenue. So if I increase traffic by a certain percentage point and nothing else changes, it's boom, that exact percentage increase to revenue, to the bottom line. If we can increase two of these things at the same time, it becomes exponentially grow revenue. So in this particular example, what we were doing is we were testing how we can increase the traffic from our emails to get more revenue. And there's an interesting relationship between conversion rates and traffic. And we find that this little example is a very helpful way of illustrating the power that you have to turn these different dials in your marketing to be able to optimize it for the ultimate result. So, for example, I can increase the traffic to my website by optimizing people to click, right? I can use clickbait, like very simple emails, you know, find out the secret to life, click here, right? Well, we might get a lot of people to click, but when they come to the website, their motivation is something very, very far from giving a donation to me. And so what we find is that we have this little kind of balancing act to do. And in this email with the George W. Bush Presidential Center, what we did is we wanted to get more people to the landing page. Our reasoning was this. The focus of an email is to sell a click, not a donation. Because you can't donate in the email. The only thing you can do is click through to the landing page or to the website and then give your gift there. So we wanted to focus on that micro yes of just getting somebody to the next step of the process. And then our reasoning was, well, we'll use the landing page to convey the value proposition for giving a gift. And so that is how we kind of, you know, spun that little dial, if you will, to the right, and that's why we had a 141% increase in traffic, clicks to the website. Now we also, if we want to increase the quality of traffic coming to our website, we can increase that by, you know, sending very highly motivated people to my website by making the ask. So if we make the ask in the email, we are going to have a much higher conversion rate on our landing page, but we're going to send a lot fewer people. Because all that they have to make their decision about whether or not they're going to give a gift is simply what you put in that email. And so we have this interesting little balancing act. So let's go back to this experiment with the George Bush Presidential Center. What I did tell you before is that we had a 141% increase in click-through. What I did not tell you is that the people that came to that web page had a 49.9% lower conversion rate than the people that clicked from the control. Well, you say, well, why would you want to decrease your conversion rate? And the reason why is because I sent so much more volume to the website, 141%, that even though I had that 50% drop in conversion, I still netted more money. I had more net donations coming out of the top of my funnel. And the reason why is because we spun that dial in our favor. We got more people that were at least interested to come to the next step in the process. And the landing page did its job in converting, you know, some of those people that never ever would have darkened the door of our website. So I hope that makes sense and is a very, you know, helpful example so you can understand how you can start to spin these different dials as it relates to marketing and to traffic. And so one simple concept that I'd like for you to take with you, and this is something that you can begin to test with, is to sell the click, not the donation. So for example, in this control version of the email, they have this wonderful story, and they tell the entire story in the email. And so the person says, well, I've got all the information I can to make my decision. Do I want to click? Do I not? Well, if the story is good enough, if it's compelling enough, and if I'm motivated to want to take the action of giving a gift, then I might click. Well, the treatment version, we just shortened that email up, and we said, hey, you know, click here to listen to the story online. And so we don't give away the story, we tease the story, and we use the email to sell the click, not the donation. And in this case, we had a 257% increase in click-through. Another example. This is the first in the series of several end-of-year emails for the Heritage Foundation as part of their end-of-year campaign. And in the control version of the email, it had our typical kind of call to action language. Donate now, give a gift now, click here to give. And so we said, well, if the goal of the email is to sell the click, not the donation, maybe we can get more people to the landing page by selling the click. And on our landing page, we had this amazing video. We said, let's just tease the video in the email. Let's tell people to click through to watch the video. And then after watching the video, we can continue the story and transition into an ask where people can give right there on the same page that inspired the gifts. We set up our A/B split test. Half the file got version A, half the file got version B. And the people that clicked on version B had a 369% higher click-through rate, which produced a 121% increase in revenue from donations. So did we have a lower conversion rate on version B clickers? Yes, we had a lower conversion rate. But we had such a higher amount of traffic to the website that that drop in conversion was surpassed by the volume of traffic that we had. So let's look at one other example of this. We were working with the Colson Center, and they had this, they would send these very, very, very long emails. And I'm not going to tell you that long emails are bad, but we simply said, well, let's just experiment with trying to sell the click and then continue the story on the landing page from the shorter email and allow that to send more traffic to the website, and hopefully we get more donations like we saw with some of our other examples. So we set up an A/B split test. Version A got the long form email that gave them all the information in the email. Version B got just the tease, and when they clicked through to the landing page continued the story with the same content that was in the long form email, and it transitioned right into the ask. And we set up our A/B split test, and version B produced a 1,209% increase in click-through. However, we also noticed when we analyzed the data, we had a 3.57% drop in donations. We said, uh-oh. So we started to look at our data set. We said, do we have a significant difference? Meaning, do we have a 95% level of confidence in our significant difference for clicks? And the answer to that was yes. We validated that metric. But when we looked at donations, we realized that we did not reach a statistical validity on the decrease in donations, and we didn't have enough samples that came through and converted on either of these. It wasn't a big enough difference in order to validate the sample set, so we needed to keep testing. And this is one lesson that we're going to come back to, which is the importance of validating your test results to a 95% level of confidence is what we use. You might use 90, but we really think 95. And what that means is 95 times out of 100, you're going to get the exact same result all the time. And that gives you the confidence necessary to be able to roll out that treatment. So we did a very similar test next month because we did not validate that test. This month, we had a 117% increase in click-through from the shorter form email. But this time, we saw donations drop by 30.7%. So, never like to see the red arrow go down. However, we learned some tremendously precious lessons through this experiment. And let me review them with you. The first one is this. Always, always, always validate your data. Okay? If you don't know how to do that, we have a tool on our website. We can send the link in the follow-up email. And it's a tool that you can use to validate your test results. But when you're validating, make sure you're validating for the ultimate conversion goal. If all we did is said, oh gosh, we got a higher click-through rate, this is the winner, and if we didn't look at the donations coming through the other side, we would have been shooting ourselves in the foot. So you have to validate and make sure you're validating for the ultimate goal. Number two, the learnings produced by testing are often more valuable than the lifts. I know we get excited about getting big green arrows that go up. However, the goal of a test is to produce a learning. And this requires us to craft very specific and clear hypotheses before we run our experiments so we can come back and say, what did we learn? Were we right? Was our hypothesis correct or was it wrong? And if it was wrong, then that also teaches us something and we can apply that to future campaigns. The lesson we took from this campaign, not only did we apply it across the board at the Colson Center, but we've been able to take the same lesson and apply it to many, many, many organizations. And it's had this just absolutely exponential effect. So the learnings are more valuable. And the final one that we learned specifically from this test is that for some organizations, the messenger trumps the message. What do I mean by that? The messenger trumps the message. Let me go back to the two emails. If you notice, one of the things when we came back here, we made some observations. We said, man, how is it that this long form email, even though it's sending not clearly as much traffic, why is it still having such a higher conversion rate that it beats all the increase in volume that we get from the short form? And if you notice the creative, it's designed to look like a letter. And the letter is signed by somebody, isn't it? It's signed by Chuck Colson, founder of the Colson Center. And what we have discovered is that when Chuck Colson tells people to do something, people are so much more motivated to do it that even though we don't get as much in volume from these long-form emails, because a lot of people don't want to read all this stuff at one time, but because Chuck tells them to do so, they're more motivated when they come to the website, and we have a much, much higher conversion rate. So very interesting, and that's something that you can test with your own organization as well, which is this idea of selling the click versus selling the donation, and then understanding, on the other side of that, are you getting more donations out of your funnel, or are you not? Okay, so let's keep moving. We still have a lot of material to cover. Let's look at another experiment. How the value proposition conveyed in an email impacts conversion. In this particular experiment, and it's in our library, it's experiment number 1029. This is very similar to the last one you just saw. So this is with Hillsdale College. This is part of February appeal, and we were testing the positioning of the value proposition. Do we put the value proposition in the email and have it signed by Dr. Larry Arnn, the president of Hillsdale College, or do we offload that to the landing page, send them a shorter email so we can get more visitors to the website, because it's a lot easier to get people to click when they don't have to read through as much content. So that was what we were testing. So you can see the control I just showed you. The treatment looks like this, and we actually convey the full value proposition in the email. So we tell them exactly what we want them to do, and we tell them exactly why they should. You can see them both side by side, the control and the treatment. And in our A/B split test, the treatment validated. We had a 411% increase in donations from the longer form email, where we had Dr. Larry Arnn sign his name underneath the value proposition language. So in this particular case, this is very similar to the Colson experience. We have a spokesperson that's very highly trusted, very highly regarded, and when he asks people to do something, and he explains to them a lucid, logical, understandable argument as to why they should, people do it, and they do it in droves. So this was a pretty interesting, follow-up to that Colson Center experiment. So let's go ahead and look at different experiments here, and let's start to look at some ads. In this particular example in our library, experiment number 1311, how visitor motivation impacts ad performance. In this particular example, again, Hillsdale College. This is a Facebook ad for their Constitution 101 online courses. And these ads are targeted to multiple different audiences with Facebook. And the goal is to get people to click on the ad, go to the landing page, sign up for the online courses. Okay? And so there's a couple just observations we make. You can see the overall creative. The main message is become a Constitution expert. And part of what our hypothesis with this control was that people want to be an expert on the Constitution. If you notice, the little button down in the bottom right-hand corner says sign up. And that's ultimately what we want people to do, is we want them to sign up. And so we went back and we looked at our original and we started to make some changes. The first thing we did, we softened the language a little bit of the copy that's around the ad. The image of the ad itself, we changed the primary value proposition, not become a Constitution expert, because maybe that's not believable. Maybe people don't think that they could take one course and become an expert in the Constitution. But maybe what they'd like to do is understand the Constitution like they never have before. So we simply convey that message in the ad creative, and then even look at the button text. We changed it from sign up, which is the ultimate goal, to simply learn more. And the idea is I'm not going to just sign up because I saw a Facebook ad that told me to sign up for this thing. I probably need a little bit more information about what the courses are, how long they last, how do I access them, are they on demand? There's a bunch of questions that I need in order to make my decision. And so you can see them side by side here. The control is on the left, the treatment is on the right. And in our A/B split test, we discovered that the treatment produced a 31% increase in clicks to our landing page, which sent more traffic to our website and we got more conversions out of the back end. Okay? So the main takeaway from this particular experiment is that, again, this goes back to that series of dials that you have to work with. We can send more motivated traffic to the website by changing the value proposition. And it doesn't just hold true in email, it can work in ads as well. Let's look at another example. Experiment number 1461 in our research library, how exclusivity and urgency impact performance of a Facebook ad. Again, this is a Facebook advertisement, this time for the Texas State Historical Association. And the offer is this really cool Battle of the Alamo eBook. Now, they had discovered that they were getting these huge spikes in traffic overnight because the History Channel began broadcasting this new series called Texas Rising. And Texas Rising was all about just different elements of history. And one night it was focused on the Alamo. So we're like, wow, this is really cool. Why don't we tap into all these people that are going online and they are expressing to us through searching that they have interest in the Alamo because Texas State Historical Association has such tremendous search engine optimization and tons of content, they usually show up in the top of the results. So all these people are coming to the website, they're interested in the Alamo. But we looked at the ad and we said, man, there's probably a way we can optimize this a little bit more. And so we created a new treatment. The first thing we did is we kind of de-emphasized the creative, okay? So if you notice in the control, we have like this beautiful picture of like the actual, it's kind of interesting, in the background of the Alamo as it originally existed during the time of the battle. And, we really kind of emphasize the creative, love Texas history, yeah, maybe. And then the offer is kind of like, it's this little side thought, get the free Battle of the Alamo ebook. In the new treatment we designed, we simply focus on the offer. Get the free Battle of the Alamo ebook while it lasts. Very interesting. We added this little element that increased the urgency of the offer. Get the free ebook, but you better hurry up because we're only going to offer this for a limited time. And so, and you can see also just by changing the copy, we increase the clarity of the offer. And you can look at them both side by side. The controls on the left, the treatments on the right. We ran our A-B split test, and the version on the right produced a 35.3% increase in the number of emails that we acquired through this offer. So the key takeaway here is that one of the tools that you have in your toolbox is clarity. We don't always necessarily have to be overly persuasive. What we need to do is help people understand exactly what our offer is. And by introducing different motivational elements like urgency, we can send much more motivated traffic to our website and inspire more clicks, and we can inspire more people to sign up for our offers. In this case, our conversion rate went from 28% to 38.7%. Okay. So let's also explore this idea of using your assets and getting the most value out of your assets and finding what's the right motivation that's going to inspire people to complete the actions you want. So let me give you another example using the Texas State Historical Association. They have this tremendous resource called the Texas Almanac, and they publish it every 2 years and update it with everything you want to know about Texas. Well, it's a 742-page, full-color book. It's amazing. It's like a phone book. Now, they had this kind of a secondary product called the Texas Almanac on CD-ROM. And I said, well, what in the world is a CD-ROM? I don't even know if my computers make CD drives anymore. But I said, how much do you sell those for? And they said, oh, they sell for $19.95. I said, okay, well, how many of those have you sold? Well, at the time, they had sold about 15 since they first released it, and they'd been about a year and a half. And I said, okay, well, so that's about what, $290? That's $299 in revenue-ish, something like that. Okay, so what about what if we actually gave it away? Now stay with me. Stay with me. What if the best way to unlock the value of this offer is not to sell it, but to give it away? And so we created a landing page, and we created a PDF version of this, and we allowed people to download it. We posted the offer, get the free Texas Almanac, all over their website. They had 74,000 people click it in the first 45 days. They had a 29% conversion rate. 29% of those people that clicked it actually went through, gave us their name and all their contact information, downloaded the ebook, which gave us 21,000 new email addresses, which is fantastic because we know that the size and quality of an email file is one of the leading indicators of an organization's ability to raise money online. So one of the things that all of us should be obsessed with is getting as many email addresses as we possibly can. Okay, so 21,000 email addresses, but we're not done there. After somebody signed up to get the free ebook, we said, oh my gosh, why don't you become a member? And so we had an instant membership conversion opportunity. We had 1.52% instant conversion rate of those 21,000 people that got that downloaded the ebook, which produced 329 new members for the organization at an average gift of $53.31, which produced $17,540 in new membership revenue. And so if you want to weigh these two offers side by side, we could sell this ebook on CD-ROM for $19.95 and maybe get a few people to do it, or we can give it away and give people an opportunity to take another step to go a little bit higher up in our conversion funnel and give them an opportunity to become a membership, cast a vision for the value proposition of becoming a member, and we'll get people to say yes to that, right? So that all happened in a 45-day span. So it's just very simple math, and I think that the example stands as a compelling reason for you to rethink your content and how you can leverage those assets to get motivated people to take that ultimate action that you want them to take. So let's look at this experiment, because we actually ran a series of different experiments around this. And the first page we came up with was this control that you see over here. And it was working really good. I told you we were getting 29% conversion rate on the page, which is fantastic. And so we said, well, let's see if we can make it better. So we created a treatment. We said, let's go from this really busy page to something that's more simplistic. It's focused on the book. Let's kind of get rid of the distracting background and all the other stuff on the page and just make it really simple, short form, and there it is. And so we ran our A/B split test, and the treatments produced that's not good, 20.4% decrease in names acquired. So we said, okay, well, if less is not more, maybe more is more. And so we created a new treatment. And what we did is we went back to our original design with the colored background and all that stuff, and we actually listed out the entire table of contents of the ebook, of all the different kinds of stuff that they can discover by downloading this book. And so we created an actually longer page. We set up an A/B split test. The longer page is on the right. It's actually shrunk down, so that's why it looks like it's shorter. But it's longer. Trust me, it's way longer. You can even see we actually had cut off this screenshot cuts off the form, so you can see that that's way below the fold. We set up our A/B split test, and treatment 2, not quite as bad as the previous one, but still, we don't want to see any drop. So 6% decrease in the number of names acquired. That's no good either. So then we went back and we said, okay, can we come up with some sort of in-between? We like this idea of decreasing the friction of the page by making it shorter, but we don't want to lose the value proposition. So we compress the value proposition into these 4 checkmark bullet points that you see on the page here. We set an A/B split test against our original control. And this time, treatment 3, still we had a 6% drop in names. However, and this is a big however, the number of people that went through this offer page and then had an opportunity to give a gift converted at a much, much higher rate. So we had an 86% increase in the number of people that gave donations after signing up for the email. So we took a 6% drop in traffic, essentially, right? 6% drop in that first step of the conversion funnel to gain an 86% increase on the back end for the much more important goal of giving a gift. And so when we analyze the data and we're trying to understand what we learned from this, one of the big observations we made is that perhaps the control version and the other treatments we created were actually selling the value proposition too good for the ebook, if you will. And so what would happen is people would sign up to get the ebook. They would not pay attention to the next page that says, oh, by the way, why don't you become a member? And they would go right to their inbox to go and get the ebook and start reading right away. So we wanted to just sell the ebook just enough to get them to say yes to that first thing, but not too much that would distract them from the ultimate goal of becoming a member for the organization. So that was a big takeaway from this particular experiment. So one of the things you need to be thinking about is, how do we discover the best front-end premium, or maybe it's a back-end premium? Well, what's the best incentive we can use to get people motivated to give a gift on the other side of that offer? So let me walk through an example of a test that we ran. And let me start and just kind of walk through the overall campaign, give you the landscape, and then we're going to zoom in just on the three-way offer test that we performed. We started with Facebook ads. We had Facebook ads that sent people to an online website that was like a quiz. It was this little polygraph, and they had to answer questions, true or false. And at the end of all the questions, we give them a score and say, hey, you did great. By the way, you got a prize. And, there's this three-way offer test. Two of them were a prize. One of them was another call to action, which is to sign a petition. Then after taking that name acquisition offer experience, we then gave them a confirmation page, and on that confirmation page, we asked them to give a gift. So there's multiple levels of calls to action that exist through here. But we just wanted to focus on, very simply, which of these three offers is going to produce the highest conversion rate to a donor on the other side of the experiment. So in this case, we had a petition, we had an ebook that they could get for free. We had this free bumper sticker that we would actually send to them. We would mail this bumper sticker to them. And we did our ABC split test, and what we found is that the free ebook produced a 27.5% increase over donations to the petition. So compared to the petition, which was in fact the control, the ebook increased the motivation of the people that accepted that offer, that when they got to the next page, they actually gave a gift at a 27% higher rate. Then we looked at the bumper sticker, and the bumper sticker actually, it even leapfrogged over the ebook. It produced a 369% increase in donations over the people that came to the petition page. And so one of the things that you can do with your testing and using your web as a living laboratory is to try and understand what is the right name acquisition offer that produces the best donor on the other side of the experiments. So that's a great example of that. Let's look at another example. This is another case study that comes from our library. Experiment ID is 1039. And in this one, we're really just looking at copy. This is copy changes made to a donation page overlay and how that affects conversion. So in this particular example, this is an organization called Caring Bridge, and they have this opportunity for people on the website to give a gift, and for a while during this campaign, they would feature a match, meaning a donor would match their contribution up to a certain amount, and we wanted to understand, what's the best way of communicating the value proposition of the match. And so the only difference between these two, the control and the treatment, is this headline. So on the left, the control says maximize with our match. Not really sure what that means. Lacks clarity. I have to continue to read to understand that the donor is going to match my gift. I'm like, do you need a match? Is it something on fire? What does that mean, right? The treatment, we clarified the value proposition. Make a tribute, and we'll double your gift. Very simply, we added clarity to this headline. We ran our A/B split test, and the treatment produced a 36% increase in donations on the back end. So the key thing you want to take away from this is that when we use donor-centric, clear copy that communicates the value proposition, you can increase the motivation of the visitor to the website so that they are more motivated to take the action. Oftentimes, the biggest problem, the biggest thing that's blocking donations is a lack of clarity, right? We need to say We don't need to sell. We just need to say, we need to be clear about what it is that we want people to do. And most importantly, why they should. Why they should. Okay, I know we're running towards the end of our time. I have just maybe one or two more experiments to show you. This one is another landing page experiment. This is a donation form. How simplifying the donation form can impact revenue, experiment number 1434 in the NextAfter Research Library. And in this particular example here, we're looking at the donation form. So this is part of a longer form landing page. I just zoomed in on the donation form. And in this donation form, there's a variety of different elements of friction. And I know we're going to talk about friction next time, so this is a little bit of kind of a foreshadowing to next month's online broadcast. But there's a very interesting relationship between friction and motivation. We'll talk about that in a second. Well, let's first look at the different elements of friction on this page. First of all, they have a gift array, which is awesome. I love gift arrays because it helps orient the donor and know how much they should give. But in this particular example, it's using these little radio buttons, and I hate radio buttons. And you know what? Your donors hate radio buttons, and I've got tons of evidence that suggests that that's true. So, it's hard to click in that little tiny circle, and, sometimes it doesn't always work, and it's not clear which one you even have selected. So we're like, okay, those radio buttons have got to go. It had this little login thing. If you're already a supporter, you can log in to access your saved information and payment details. Well, most of us think that this is a good thing. And, our intuition would say, oh, it totally makes sense, right? But there's a problem with logins. And the problem with logins is that every single login system has a different naming convention of how your password has to be named. Some have to be all letters, some have to be all numbers, some have to be a combination of numbers and letters, some have to have capitals, some have to have exclamation point. There's so many different rules, and they vary across the board. It's not standardized. So the problem is that we spend most of our time when we try to log in clicking on that little forgot my password thing. Well, you know what that's like. You click on that little forget my password thing, and unless it sends it to you instantly, you're sitting there in your inbox just hitting refresh, refresh, refresh. And I don't know about you, but I have a short attention span. So when I get in my inbox, there's all these other things that are vying for my attention, and I'm kind of like a little gnat. I'm like, my eyes are scanning around, and I'm like, oh, shiny thing. And I go and I click on a different email, and I totally forgot what I was doing in the first place, and I never come back and complete the gift. So a login form can introduce tremendous amounts of friction, even though we think it's a good thing, even if it's, it stores all that stuff and makes it easier to fill in the form the next time. It also introduces tremendous amount of friction. The final thing is we noticed there's this little checkbox for email subscription opt-in. We said, okay, well, maybe we can eliminate that and just confirm that on the confirmation page. And so we created a treatment. And the treatment was based on these observations. The first thing we did, we got rid of the gift array. Or actually, we didn't get rid of the gift array. We got rid of the radio buttons. Replaced those with easy-to-click big old buttons. We find big old buttons are like, there's something pleasurable to a donor about clicking a button. I don't know what it is, but it's amazing. So we added the big buttons. We got rid of, there was a little area for them to submit a comment. In the donation experiments, man, you don't want to have any unsupervised thinking or just get them focused on completing the form and getting out of there. If they want to leave comments, have them do it on the confirmation page. So we got rid of that. We removed the login button, and we also removed the email opt-in little box. We said, look, by nature, when somebody gives a gift, you're entering into a business relationship with them. Of course, I have to send them a receipt, but now I actually have implied consent to be able to communicate with this person via email. So you can see control versus treatment, side by side, head to head. In our A/B split test, the treatment produced a 252% increase in revenue to this campaign. Simply awesome. Okay, so the big thing that we discovered, and the big takeaway here, is by reducing the number of decisions, reducing the friction on the donation form, you can actually unlock all this motivation and get more people to go through the funnel. So let me walk through one final one final model that will help you to understand this special relationship that exists between motivation and friction, especially on your giving forms. Okay? So this graph here represents a few things. On the vertical axis, the going up and down axis, we have motivation, and it goes from low, starts at the bottom left-hand corner, goes up to the top, and that represents high motivation. On the horizontal axis, we have friction, and friction goes from high in the bottom left-hand corner to low on the bottom right-hand corner. This blue line represents the probability of conversion. Anything to the right or up to above the line or up to the right of the line will convert. Anything below the line or to the left of the line will not convert, will actually lead to abandonment. Okay? And again, I don't know exactly where that line goes, but it looks something like this. It's a logarithmic curve. Okay, so in the upper right-hand corner, this is what we need to be aiming for. We want to send highly motivated people to our donation form, right? So they're motivated to give. And we also want to have as little friction as we can so it makes it easy for them to give. If we do that, man, we've got a great, great opportunity to get people to convert. Now, maybe it's not 100% of the time, but we send in highly motivated people, low friction, you know, the chances are those people are definitely going to convert. Okay? Let's move to the left box. In this box, we've got high motivation and high friction. Now, what's interesting is that if we have an extremely highly motivated person come into your website and they're dead set on giving a gift to you, maybe they got a piece of direct mail, or maybe there's something else that inspired them, they saw something on TV or radio, then this person is super focused on giving a gift. Well, even if your form is the worst giving experience in the history of mankind, if the person's motivated enough, they'll persevere and they'll give a gift. Now, it's obviously better. You'll have better chances of converting more people that maybe are not high, but maybe medium to high, by reducing the friction. But what's interesting is motivation trumps friction in this particular model. Let's look at the bottom left-hand corner. This left-hand corner represents low motivation and high friction. Now, in this particular example, even if you have, if you get a form that's really hard for people to use and they're not super motivated in the first place, chances are you're probably not going to convert that person to giving a gift, right? It's just not going to happen. And then let's move to the bottom right-hand box. This is the box represented by somebody that has low motivation in a form that's really, 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 really optimized, okay? Now, in this particular example, we actually have a better, shot, but at some point it kind of levels off. And it doesn't matter how good your form is, if these people are not motivated or they do not have any sort of intention of giving a gift, just not going to happen, right? It's just not going to happen. So what we're aiming for is this top right quadrant, okay? And next week we're going to talk about how to reduce friction. And so when you combine these two things together, man, you've got something that is dynamite, right? High motivation, low friction, you're going to have much higher probability of converting people to give a gift. So I know we're almost out of time. We've got about 6 minutes left. I want to hear from you. I want your questions. I want your feedback. I'd love, honestly, any ideas you have for how we can improve these online broadcasts in the future. If you have any other topics you'd like us to cover in the future on one of these broadcasts, love to hear that as well. You can email me, tim@nextafter.com. That's my real email address. Go ahead and send anything there, or contact me via LinkedIn or Twitter. Before we go, I just want to make a couple quick notes. Jeff mentioned at the beginning that we are going to send out links to all of these experiments so you can study them in greater detail. They all exist online at our research library, which is research.nextafter.com. But we'll also send you a link out so you can get there that way. And the cool thing, this library thing, this is really Kevin Peters' brainchild. He built this as a way for us to share our learnings across the industry. Our mission is to help and continue to help you become a better and better and better fundraiser, because we want to see dramatic impact in the nonprofit industry. There's not a lot of people talking about optimization. We want to provoke that conversation. But each of these different case studies has a little bit of background. We kind of link it to which of the factors of that conversion formulas that I showed you earlier that we focused on with the test. We've got the full screenshots that you can blow up and look at those and study and even, try and test some of the same things on your landing pages. We've got the full data sets. You can download slides. You can share with friends. There's a lot of information. It's a tremendously valuable resource, and we just want you to make use of that. Finally, on July 21st, we're going to host our next online broadcast, and we're going to do something that we did once, actually last month, we did live optimization. So we're going to focus, the first half of the hour is going to focus on teaching about friction and how you can eradicate friction. The second half of the broadcast, we're going to turn everybody on the broadcast into a live panel that will help us optimize your landing pages. So you can go ahead and submit landing pages to us in advance of that broadcast. I think we need to get those in by July 15th. So go to research.nextafter.com/live optimization. Again, we'll send you a link to this so you can submit your pages. But go ahead and just fill out the form with your name and information. We'll contact you. We might have some background questions, and we're going to try and get through as many of those landing pages as we possibly can during the broadcast on the 21st. So mark your calendars, and we'd love to have you back. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Jeff and see if there's any questions that we can answer in the short time that we have left.
Yeah, Tim, we do have a couple questions. I've got one here for you. Someone asked, you mentioned that highly motivated donors are not as affected by friction. The question then is, does that mean we don't need to worry about friction if we have consistently high conversion rates?
Yeah, that's a great question. Motivation trumps friction, but the key is getting in that upper right-hand box where we have very low friction on our form, which means it's easier for people to give. And so all we have to focus on is not necessarily the technology, but the message. What are the different things that we can do to inspire these donors? Because it's so easy to give. The ultimate goal would be one-click giving, just like Amazon, one-click purchasing. So does that mean that you don't need to? You could take your eye off of friction? No, that doesn't mean that. The other thing it means is that you're not sending enough traffic to the website. If you have super high conversion rates, then you probably don't have as much volume as you could potentially have. So go back all the way to that first experiment we looked at with the George Bush Presidential Center. We opened up the floodgates a little bit by actually reducing the commitment in the email. We said, the control said give your tax-deductible gift by clicking here. We got rid of that, and we said just, become a charter member. And they're like, wow, what's that? And so we got more people that were curious. They clicked on the landing page. We used the landing page to do the selling job. And so we had so much more volume coming through the bottom or top of the funnel, depending on how you look at it, that we had so much more coming through the other end. So does that kind of help answer that question?
Yeah, I think so. We also have another question here asking, how big of a pool do you need to validate your test? What if your pool or your donor file is a lot smaller?
Yeah, that's great. So we have a tool that will help you to do that. So if you go online to the research library, there's a test validator. You can punch in different numbers there. The answer is it really depends. It depends on how big of a spread there is between the control and the treatment. If you have like a 3% lift, well, you're going to need like thousands and thousands and thousands of data points to validate a 3% lift. But if you make a radical change to your email or a radical change to your landing page, and there's a big variance between the control and the treatment, say at 200%, or 300%, 100%, well, then you don't need as big of a sample set because the variance is large enough. But the test validators that we have on our website, it'll estimate all that. It'll show you exactly how many samples or how many data points you need in your sample set in order to get a statistical relevance result that you can trust.
Cool. Well, thanks, everybody, for your questions, for your time today. I know we've coming right up to the 1 o'clock hour. Appreciate everyone staying on and listening. Again, we're going to end this meeting shortly, and you'll be taken to a page where you can register for our next online broadcast in July, which focuses on friction. So I'm really glad we ended on that question right there, Tim. Again, check out the research library at research.nextafter.com. We'll be sending out links to all the case studies as well as the video and the slide deck that you just saw in just a few moments. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.